Warm welcome, children. I'm back again to the class of biology, and I did not get time to check your papers as yet, as I was busy with the board corrections. And once I'm through with it, I'll check the papers and I'll give you the results. Right, so we are back to the last part of chapter 2, that is biological classification, and we are left with kingdom Animalia, which we will do today, and we'll finish off this chapter today itself. Right, so kingdom Animalia, that means all the animals, they are grouped under kingdom Animalia. Now whether these animals are small animals or huge animals, all the animals are grouped under kingdom Animalia. Right, so in kingdom Animalia, we find that all the organisms, all the animals that belong to this particular kingdom are multicellular. Multicellular means made up of more than one cells, right? So they are multicellular, they are eukaryotic, their cells are eukaryotic, and by now I'm sure you must be knowing what a eukaryotic cell is. That means a cell with a true nucleus present and membrane bound organelles are present. So they are eukaryotic and they are multicellular organisms, right? Then we see that the animals, they cannot manufacture their own food. And if they cannot manufacture their own food, then they are not autotrophic. So then what are they? They are heterotrophs, right? So animals show a heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So they are heterotrophs, right? So they use different sources to take food, right? They cannot manufacture their own food, right? So the cells that are there, since we said that they are eukaryotic, and eukaryotic, I told you, means the presence of a true nucleus, right? And they are membrane bound organelles present. So in all the eukaryotic cells, we find the presence of mitochondria also, which is a cell organelle, right? And it is the powerhouse of the cell. That means it is this particular organelle in the cell that provides energy to carry out all the activities inside the cell, right? So all the cells are associated with mitochondria. So mitochondria is present over there, and they rely for their food on other sources, right? Now there is a definite growth pattern also, right? A definite growth pattern here means that the adult develops from an embryo, right? If you remember, when you studied fertilization, in that we had discussed that it is the fusion of a male and a female gamete to form a zygote, right? The zygote divides to form a mass of cells which is known as an embryo, right? So what is embryo? It is a small mass of differentiated mass of cells. Not differentiated means that mass of cells will not, you won't be able to differentiate that which part of the embryo would form the head, which would form the legs, etc. Right? So it is an unspecialized cell, right? A small mass of unspecialized cell. So there is a definite growth pattern in which we see that adults, they develop from embryo. What is an embryo? A small embryo is a small mass of unspecialized cells, right? Small mass of unspecialized cells. It is the result of the division of zygote that the embryo is formed, right? So a definite growth pattern, and then we see that the simple organisms, simple animals, right? So like for example, we've already studied the different phylums, and when you study the phylum, you find that the phylums are arranged from simple to complex, right? As you move on to the last phylum, that is the most complex phylum that is there, right? And so the simpler ones are obviously the first few phylums are simpler. Simpler means their body is not very complex. So we will see that there are some simpler organisms which can regenerate a part of their body, right? Not all the organisms. So some simple organisms can regenerate their body parts. So we will continue further. So there are some simple organisms, simple animals can regenerate their body parts, right? Not all, few, right? Then we came to, we discussed just now that the animals are heterotrophic, they cannot manufacture their own food, and what mode of nutrition is found under heterotrophic is that they are holozoic. They are holozoic in nature, means they follow the 5 steps of ingestion, taking in of the food in the mouth, digestion by various digestive enzymes and juices, then absorption, assimilation, absorption by the blood, assimilation is utilization, assimilation, and then excretion, right? So egestion, we will say. Instead of excretion, we will write the word egestion. Removing of the unwanted, undigested food matter in the form of feces is egestion, right? So these are the 5 steps of holozoic mode of nutrition, and when we come to this second step of the holozoic mode of nutrition, which is digestion, we see that for digestion they have a specialized internal cavity that is there, right? So here when we talk about digestion, there is a specialized internal cavity, a hollow space in which digestion takes place, right? So this is one more characteristic feature of the animal kingdom, right? And then we see that there are around 9 to 10 million animals that are found on earth, and lot many species of animals that are found in the animal kingdom, right? Now we come to certain other characteristics of kingdom Animalia, and we will talk about animal movement, right? One characteristic feature, differentiating feature between the plants and the animals is that the animals are mobile, right? So animal movement, right? So when an organism can move from one place to another place on its own, it is known as locomotion, or we can say that the animal is mobile, right? Can move from one place to another place. And those organisms which cannot move or remain in their own place, they are known as sessile, right? So we see 2 types of movement. One kind of movement is, we will say, is mobile. I'm sure everybody would understand. And the other is sessile. Sessile when an organism is unable to locomote from one place to another on its own, right? So they remain rooted to a particular, part. But one important thing that we see, even in sessile, they are rooted to a particular spot, a particular space, place, right? So even if they are rooted to a particular place or they are sessile, still we see in these organisms that there is some kind of movement their body parts, right? So their body part would move, right, in some way or the other. However non-mobile they are, or however sessile they are, right? Now that movement of course depends on certain factors, and especially the way they take their food, that is one factor, right? Next we come to the next characteristic that we will talk about is about animal reproduction. Right, so animal reproduction, what do we see? We find that mostly the animals reproduce sexually, right? And when they reproduce sexually, they reproduce through sexual gametes, right? So these gametes, they are haploid, they reproduce through gametes, right? The two gametes are sperm and ova, right? And sperm and ova, they are haploid in nature. Now what does haploid mean? Haploid means that they carry half the number of chromosomes, right? So if we say that there are 46 chromosomes in a particular cell, then the gamete would carry only 23 chromosomes, right? So that is half the number of chromosomes, means they are haploid, right? So fusion of these two gametes leads to fertilization, which is known as sexual reproduction, right? And then the animal that is formed, that is after fertilization, the zygote that is formed, which further develops into an embryo and then into a fetus and then into an infant, which grows into an adult. So in all these stages, all the cells, apart from the reproductive cells, these two types of cells, all the other cells are diploid. So adult animal, we can say, is diploid, right? Diploid means it contains 46 chromosomes, right? Every cell in the body has 46 chromosomes except the gametes. The gametes, they have only half the number of chromosomes, that is why they are haploid, right? Next characteristic feature is the animal size, right? So a huge variation in the animal size, right? So animal size, huge variation. As I said, mostly they are sorry, the animals which are made up of just few cells, which are very, very tiny, right? So from few cells, right, when we will study about the classification of animal kingdom, then we will find what are what groups are they divided into, and accordingly which group is which group has animals with only a few cells, right? So whatever it is, animals with few cells to animals weighing many tons, right? That is the variation, to animals weighing many tons, right? So the whale, the blue whale, right? That is one example, right? So that is the variation in the size of the animals. Next we come to the habitat. Habitat is the place where the animals are found. And when we talk about the habitat, we find that maximum number of animals are found in sea, right? Maximum are found in sea, fewer than the number in sea, little less in fresh water, and the lesser than this is found on land, terrestrial, right? So maximum number of animals are found in the sea, a little less in the fresh water, and we can say out of all, the least are found on land, and the least that are found on land are also is a huge number, right? So that is there, the distribution in the habitat, right? Next we come to the next characteristic feature is the animal bodies, right? So in animal bodies, basically what is the body made up of? So the body is made up of cells. So we find that there are organisms whose body is only made up of a few cells, which are, and each cell is, specialized to perform certain function, right? So there is cellular level of organization, where only cells behave like organs to perform a function, right? And then there is tissue level. Tissue level also we'll study. Then these tissues, they form organs, organ level, right? And many organs will form an organism, right? So that is the animal bodies that we talk about. And when we will talk about different phylums, then we will come to know that which phylum has animals which have only the cellular level of organization, right? And which animals have tissue level of organization. And even when we talk about an organism, like for example, if we talk about ourselves, and we know that we have specialized organs to perform functions, right? So what is the overview? We get to see that they are these cells which are specialized to perform some special functions. For example, the cells which are present in the stomach won't be able to work for the kidney, right? So there are specialized cells that are there in the stomach which perform their own function, and specialized cells in the kidney which perform their own function, right? So that is how these cells, they get differentiated and they get specialized to perform some specific functions, right? Now we come to the next feature, that is the cell structure. We won't be discussing into detail the cell structure. So it's just that, right? So it's just that the outermost membrane is the cell membrane. Outermost is the cell membrane, right? Cell wall is not present in the animal cell, right? Then of course nucleus is there, right? Its nuclear membrane is there. Nuclear membrane, right? Inside that is the nucleus, right? Then comes the nucleolus, right? Apart from that, you have the ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, which are smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum, right? Mitochondria is there, right? Presence of centrioles, right? One cell organelle that is found only in the animal cell. Plastids are found only in the plant cell. Centrioles are found only in the animal cells, right? So these are some of the cell organelles that are found inside the animal cell, right? So what we need to know is that cell wall is not present in an animal cell, right? It's a eukaryotic cell. That means a well-defined nucleus is there, and membrane-bound organelles, as Golgi body is also there, right? Membrane-bound organelles are present, and the animal cell has the centrioles present, right? Next we come to the systems that are there in the body, right? All the systems that you can think about, right? So all the animal systems that are there inside our body. We can very well relate with what we are studying, relate ourselves with what we are studying, right? So animal system, in animal system, we study about the skeletal system. Now the skeletal system, when we study all throughout in the animal kingdom, we will see that it is made up of shells, bones, cartilage, right? So this is what is the basic structure, and what is the function of the skeletal system is that it provides function, let's see, function, it provides protection, right? You know what are the internal organs which are protected with the skeletal system? The brain is protected, our lungs are protected, heart is protected, right, with the skeletal system, and it also provides support to our body, right? Had there been no skeletal system, we would have just been a mass of flesh, and we would not have been able to stand straight or do any work, not even sit, right? Every time we would topple down, we would always be on the floor, right? So the skeletal system also provides support, right? Next we come to the muscular system. Muscular system made up of muscles, and it helps in the movement of body parts, right? So movement of body parts. The third we come to is digestion, right? So we are talking about all the systems here. So the digestive system, and if you talk about the digestive system in man, I'm not going to write all this. It starts right away from the mouth to the esophagus, moves down to the stomach. From the stomach, it goes to the small intestine. Small intestine is connected to the liver and the pancreas, right? And from the small intestine, various parts of the small intestine, the food goes to the large intestine, and from there it is taken out from the body through the in the form of feces, right? So those are the parts of the systems, I mean the parts of the digestive system in human beings, right? In birds, the digestion part of the food takes place in gullet, right? So in birds it is the gullet in which digestion takes place, and in smaller organisms, primitive organisms, the food vacuoles are there, right? Food vacuoles. So digestion takes place in the food vacuoles. Next we come to the next system, that is the circulatory system, right? Circulatory system made up of heart, arteries, veins and capillaries, right? So next is the circulatory system. We've done it in detail in class 10, right? So made up of heart, arteries, veins and capillaries. And what does the circulatory system do? It helps in the exchange of gases. It pumps blood. The heart helps in pumping blood to all the parts of the body, right? So the exchange of food materials, like whatever nutrients have to be, transported to the cell, all is done by the circulatory system, right? We have a 4-chambered heart. Humans have a 4-chambered heart. When you will study in the various phylums, you'll find some organisms having 2-chambered heart, right? 3-chambered, incompletely 4-chambered heart, like this they have, right? So there are different types of hearts that are there. Then the next is respiration, right? Breaking down of the food into simpler forms by the reaction of oxygen with the food, right? And this process, it leads to the formation of energy. So that is what is respiration, and as a result there are some byproducts given out, carbon dioxide and water. So the energy that is formed, it gives us the energy to do all the work. So that is respiration. Then when all these metabolic reactions takes place, then what happens? There are some products that are formed which are harmful and which needs to be removed from the body, right? So all the nitrogenous waste in our body is in no way equipped to deal with the nitrogenous waste, right? It can do nothing. For our body, all the nitrogenous waste is a poison, right? So that has to be removed from the body. So through this process of excretion in the form of urine, the nitrogenous wastes are removed, right? And when the kidneys, when they do not function properly, then what happens? Accumulation of nitrogenous waste takes place. That could even be fatal if it is not treated, right? So that was excretion. And then we have the nervous system also present, right? Nervous system with all the 5 senses, it perceives, right? It keeps us connected to the outer world, right? So perception and control of movement Now this nervous system is made up of brain, spinal cord and nerves, right? Then we have an immune system, right, which builds up our immunity to fight against the disease, right? Any foreign organism, any germ, the immune system fights against that and keeps us healthy and safe, right? And next is the animal symmetry. Now animal symmetry, we will find that there are various kinds of symmetry that is found in organisms. Now there are certain organisms which are the most primitive ones. They are asymmetrical. A means absence of symmetry. That means there is no particular shape to their body, right? And they can form any shape, and so they are asymmetrical. Then we find that there is one is asymmetrical, right? Next we find is radial symmetry. In radial symmetry, what happens is, in whichever way, in whichever plane the body is cut. Now for example, if the body is cut like this, the body can be divided into two equal halves. If it is cut like this, then also both these parts will be equal. If it is cut like this, then also both the halves will have equal parts, right? So when the body is divided into similar halves by dividing into more than two planes, right? 1, 2, whichever way they are divided into two equal parts, right? So that is radial symmetry. Then we have the bilateral symmetry. Bilateral symmetry, our body, right? So can be divided into only by one plane into two parts, right? And both the parts will have equal parts, equal organs, right? So if it is divided longitudinally, obviously not transversely, then that would be different, right? So that is about the symmetry. And now we come to the last part of this animal kingdom, and the last part is quite interesting, right? Why interesting? Because the reason, why interesting? Because we are going to study something that is related to the lockdown, right? Why are we under the lockdown? We are in this lockdown because of coronavirus, right? So this online teaching is the result of coronavirus, right? So what are we going to study today in the last part is about the virus, right? Interesting, because coronavirus is also the most talked about and the most, we can say, deadly virus, right? Now coronavirus is one deadly virus. Other than that, we do suffer from flu, from influenza, from cold, right? So normally each one of us suffer from such problems, right? Every year, whenever there's a change in season, we suffer from this, right? Now what happens, why do we suffer from this, is also because of some viruses that are related to influenza, that is cold, right? So, and then of course when we take, in few days we feel better also, right? We recover from that because the immune system fights with those viruses and keeps us safe, right? Now these viruses are said to cause, they're pathogenic, they cause diseases. They cause diseases not only in animals, they cause diseases in plants as well, right? So they are pathogenic. You remember with cancer, right? Cancer is one deadly disease which has almost, we can say, no cure if it has reached some stage and later stages, and that is also caused by a virus, right? So we will talk about what is this virus and what makes it thrive inside our body, right? Now this virus was discovered by a Russian biologist, D.J. Ivanovsky, right? By a Russian biologist, D.J. Ivanovsky, right? Ivanovsky, V is missing. VSKY, right? So Russians, they have such difficult names. So he's a Russian biologist who had discovered the virus for the first time in the year 1892. And how did he discover? He saw that he found some tobacco leaves with some kind of a mosaic. Like for example, if I draw a leaf here and some spots, mosaic kind. You know what is a mosaic? Different designs are there, mosaic floors and all, etc. we have. So he found that there are some tobacco leaves which are mosaic appearance which have. Now he tried to find out that why are there certain leaves which have this mosaic kind of a design, whereas others do not have. Right. So what he did was he saw it under the microscope. He observed it, and he found out that the pathogens that are found to be in this mosaic of the tobacco leaves, they are ultra microscopic. Right, ultra microscopic. When Anthony von Leeuwenhoek, when he discovered the microorganisms like bacteria, right, they are microscopic. They can be observed under a microscope. Therefore, to observe these organisms, a more stronger microscope is required. That is why they are ultra microscopic. That means that they are even smaller than the bacteria. Bacteria are already microscopic. We need a microscope to view them, right? And this virus is ultra microscopic, even smaller than the bacteria, right? So he found that these are ultra microscopic, and now he wanted to confirm whether it is whether this particular pathogen is causing the disease or not. So what he did was he squeezed the juice of this particular leaf infected with the mosaic disease, right? And what he did was he squeezed the juice of that leaf, obviously infected, it must be infected with this pathogen, and he filtered that so that if there is any other pathogen that is there, like for example a bacteria, that would get filtered, right? So in Pasteur's laboratory, special filters, bacterial filters and all also were made, so must have used that. So now what happened was, he took that juice, the filtered juice, the filtrate, right, he took, and he made the healthy leaves come in contact with that infected juice. And what he found after some time, after a few days, was that those healthy leaves also got infected, and they suffered from this mosaic disease, right? So what he said later was that these viruses, the juice that was found, that was taken out from this leaf, was poisonous, we can say, right? So the word virus comes from, it means poison. So the word virus means poison, right? So how did the word virus come from? Poison is when this was done, when he had squeezed the juice to see what happens if he makes the juice come in contact with the healthy leaves, and he found that the leaves got infected. So that means the juice was poisonous. So from there the word virus has come, right? Another scientist, Bejernik, Bejernik, Bejernik. He is another scientist. He is a Dutch scientist, and he confirmed Ivanovski's experiment, his discovery, and then he named this fluid that was taken out, the juice from the tobacco mosaic leaf, the juice that was taken out, he named it as, that is the filtrate, he named it as Contagium vivum fluidum. Contagium vivum fluidum, right? So what does this mean? Living contagious fluid. This means living contagious fluid. Contagious means when it comes in contact with another thing, it will transfer its infection. That is contagious, right? So living contagious food. So that was how the viruses were discovered, right? And we will just quickly go through the structure of the virus. Now the structure of the virus, they are very, imagine they're ultra microscopic and then they have a special structure. Right, what we see is that, okay, so that's a rough structure of one of the virus. What we see here is that this spiral structure is an RNA, which is a single stranded RNA, right? A single stranded RNA, and this RNA is the genetic material, right? This RNA, it runs right down and it is surrounded with a protein coat. This whole body is a protein coat, right? So this whole covering together is known as capsid, right? What it is made up of? It is made up of protein, right? And this capsid is made up of many subunits which are known as capsomeres. MERES. Capsomeres, right? So capsomeres make capsid, and what is the capsid? It is the proteinaceous covering around the around the genetic material, right? Now there are different types of viruses found, right? You will find that there is one virus which is in this shape. And inside this, the genetic material is a DNA, and this DNA this DNA that is there, which is the genetic material, this outer part is the protein coat, right? And these are the tail fibers, right? This is the neck region, right? This is known as a bacteriophage. Bacteriophage. This is a virus, right? A bacteriophage virus. And the viruses that attack a bacteria are known as bacteriophage. The viruses that that attack fungi are known as mycophage. The word myco, fungi. The viruses that attack viruses are known as virophage. Right, so they attack virus, and here this attacks bacteria. Right, so bacteriophage virus. So basically what we get to see is that they have a genetic material that is present. This genetic material can be a DNA or an RNA. It can be single-stranded or double-stranded, but never will any virus have both the genetic nucleic acids. Never will they have RNA and DNA both present. Any one will be present, right? And then the body is covered, the genetic material is protected inside, it is covered with the protein coat, that is the capsid, which is the outermost covering. So that is how they remain, the genetic material remains protected inside the virus, right? And these capsomeres, they have their own ability to arrange themselves, to assemble and form the whole capsid. Now what else do we find here is that these viruses are inanimate organisms, we can say, right? Inanimate. Inanimate means not having life, right? So they are inanimate, right? and they show some, like, you know what, they show certain characteristics of living organisms, and they show certain characteristics of non-living organisms also, right? So we can say that it forms a connecting link between the living and the non-living world, right? Then we discussed that they are ultra microscopic, right? They're innumerable, many viruses, right? And they can be found everywhere. They can be found in the soil, in the water, right? In air, right? And they, the viruses, they, if you talk about the size also varies, right? What is the variation? The smallest virus is 0.02 micrometer, right? And the largest virus is 0.35 micrometer, right? This is the size. So you can imagine how small they are, right? And you know, another important thing is they reproduce at a very fast rate, right? Now I said just now inanimate, now I am saying that it reproduces at a fast rate. It can reproduce reproduce means it multiplies at a very fast rate, but only if it is inside a living host, right? Inside a living host, not even a dead host, a living host, because it derives all the metabolic reaction of the virus can take place only with the help of the machinery of the living host. So outside the living host, if they are on some surface, they are nothing. They are inanimate. They cannot multiply. The moment, that is how the people are getting sick with this virus, coronavirus. The moment it enters the body, it divides at a very fast, it multiplies at a very fast rate, right? And it, or we can say it reproduces at a very fast rate, and that is how it starts infecting all the parts of the body, right? Another characteristic feature is that it can mutate, right? So it can mutate, right? It can reproduce, it can mutate, it can reproduce, right? And mutation, to reproduce inside a living host. These are living characteristics. Only a living organism can mutate, and only a living organism can reproduce, right? So of course when they are inside a living host, by using the machinery they reproduce and they mutate, right? And they are acellular. Look at this, they are acellular. We're talking about the non-living characteristic, right? Now if we talk about the non-living characteristic of this organism, non-living, they are acellular. Absence of cell. Now what do we mean by acellular? There is no cytoplasm present, right? There are no cell organelles present. So then they are acellular. Then they carry out no metabolism. Right, so if they are outside a living host, no metabolism. The metabolism can take place only when they are inside the living host, and that too they use the metabolic machinery of the host, right? So no metabolism, and they cannot replicate also on their own. Of course they have to use the machinery of the host for that, right? And of course it will possess the genetic material, either DNA or an RNA, right? So that's about the virus, and two more very small things are left. That is, we will quickly go through what are viroids. Lichens we've already studied, so lichens is also in your book. It is discussed in this part, and since we've already done that, so we won't be discussing. We come to viroids now, right? From the name virus, viroids. Right? So what are these? This was discovered by T.O. Diner, right? And viroids, they are much smaller than the virus. Imagine how ultra microscopic a virus is, and a viroid is much smaller than a virus, right? Now another important thing is that the viroids, they are naked, right? Naked means they are not covered with protein coat, no protein coat, right? Like the viruses, they have a protein coat present, so they don't have a protein coat present, right? So they they have RNA as their genetic material, right, which is a single stranded RNA, right? It is circular and very short, very small RNA is present in these viroids, right? And what are these viroids famous for? They are plant pathogens, right? They are plant pathogens. So that's about a viroid, right? Discovered by Theo Diner, much smaller than a virus. They are naked, that means they do not have a protein covering. They have this nucleic acid, RNA, which is a single stranded short nucleic acid, but no protein covering, and they are plant pathogens, right? And next we come to prions, right? The last one, prions. You must have heard of a disease known as Kuru, or it is also known as laughing death, right? Laughing death is another name. Right, in this what happens is that the organism who gets infected with this particular thing, the organism suffers from a neuro degeneration. The nervous system starts getting degenerated, and also randomly the person suffers from bouts of laughter, right? So that is why it is laughing death. There is no cure for the disease. This is a fatal disease. There is no cure, right? Neuro degeneratory, right? May have random bouts of laughter, right? And apart from random bouts of laughter, the coordination of the body is disturbed, right? Disturbed coordination. Why? Because obviously the neurosensory system is getting degenerated. So obviously the coordination of the body also gets disturbed. Now this disease was found, or we can say this disorder was found in people living in a very, very known country. We very recently had visitors from that country in our school. We have one of a branch in that particular country, and that country is known as Papua New Guinea. Right, so this was the country where this disease was found, Kuru, right? A native name of that particular disease in that country, Kuru, or laughing death, right? It's a very, very rare kind of a disease. There is no cure for the disease, so it is a fatal disease, neurodegeneration disorder, right? And it is caused by, what are these? By prions. Now what are these? These are abnormally folded proteins, right? What are these? These are abnormally folded proteins, right? Many proteins, they are folded in a very abnormal manner, right? Now this proteinaceous infectious particle, this was earlier, this is also known as, this prion is also known as proteinaceous infectious particle, right? A particle that is made up of protein which is abnormally folded and is able to cause infection, right? So that is what a prion is, and this basically it infects the animals only, right? Viroids, they infect plants, and prions they infect animals, right? They are the group of proteins, they are we can say they are misfolded protein, not in a normal way, abnormally they are folded. So we can say they are misfolded proteins, and they can transmit a disease to any person, right? Even our body has all the proteins that are present in a prion, right? So easily a prion can infect us also, right? So it is devoid of nucleic acid, right? So another important thing is that it is devoid of nucleic acid. So there is no nucleic acid also present. So what is this? Basically, it is a particle which is made up of, misfolded proteins, right? And the proteins with which this prion is made is resistant to the protein of our body. That means our body proteins can in no way destroy them, right? So they are resistant to the proteins of our body. So that's about the prions, and today we talked about the animal kingdom, in which we discussed the general characteristics of the animals, the various systems in the animals, and we talked about viruses, viroids and prions, right? So just do the assignment that I've given you, and you've been doing it very, very regularly. I am happy with you children because you're doing your work properly, and please continue doing your work like this only, and continue learning your work, right? So that's all for today. Thank you.